The five-knuckle reshuffle made necessary by Damian Green's apparently exorbitant use of the World Wide Web, which saw him dismissed from his post as the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, a rather sordid end, you might think, to a parliamentary career. All careers end in failure, but they don't all spill onto such stony ground as Damian Green. He fell on his sword, though if he had fallen on it earlier, none of this might have been necessary. Sorry, there are people laughing in my environs. I meant no double entendre at all. But the reshuffle thus made necessary has turned into a full-blown fiasco. Now, fiasco and other words like it are perhaps overused. Hyperbolic use of such phrases can cheapen the currency, but by anybody's standards, this reshuffle was a catastrophe. It began, innocently enough, you might say, with a staffer in central office of the Conservative Party hearing on the BBC that font of wisdom and accuracy that Chris Grayling was about to become the new chairman of the Conservative Party. The young whippersnapper, I presume, wanting to please their new boss, leapt onto Twitter and offered their congratulations. It lasted for 21 seconds before it turned out that the new chairman wasn't to be Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary, but a second-hand salesman, a second-hand carman, a garagiste, whose name presently escapes me, was taking the position instead. Much glee amongst the chattering classes. A bit unfair on the young whippersnapper, I thought. Blame the BBC rather than them. But it was all downhill from there. The Prime Minister lost two ministers that she wanted to keep in the cabinet. Her Northern Ireland secretary at a very critical time, when are they not critical times in the north of Ireland, had to step down for health reasons, and one wishes him well on a personal level. Justine Greening, the Education Secretary, haggled for 3 whole hours before walking out of Downing Street and out of the cabinet altogether because she refused to be moved. Another fellow whom I'd never heard of before, the business secretary, he managed to hold on to a job the Prime Minister wanted to move him from. The biggest mystery of them all, though, is Jeremy Hunt. Well, perhaps the second greatest. But Jeremy Hunt appears to lead a charmed life. He appears to enjoy some strange alchemy with the Prime Minister, who has twice now tried to move him from his position as the most hated government minister of them all, subject to caveat in a minute. Jeremy Hunt was briefed for weeks, going to succeed Damian Green, he of the World Wide Web, as the Deputy Prime Minister. That turned out not to have happened. Indeed, such is the dearth of talent that the Prime Minister hasn't appointed anyone to Damian Green's position. Perhaps she considers him irreplaceable. Perhaps she's looking on the World Wide Web for someone who might be useful in that position. So Jeremy Hunt didn't get that promotion. In fact, she wanted to demote him to the Business Secretary's position, which its current incumbent, in any case, refused to move from. So instead of demoting him, she promoted him, gave him social care, one of the great British crises, to add to the great British crises of the National Health Service, over which Jeremy Hunt, I said, Hunt is presiding with such dismal levels of failure that one can hardly believe I mean, how many people have to be lying on the floor of the corridors of Britain's hospitals? How many trolleys have to clog up those corridors with sick people on them, unable to gain a bed? How many days do you have to wait at A&E before Jeremy Hunt, I said, is finally moved from that position? But not content with failure on an Everestian scale in the NHS, she's now handed him social care, which, if anything, is an even more grave, underfunded crisis. So Jeremy Hunt stays. No wonder he looked like the cat that had got the cream. And somebody else has been sent to Northern Ireland. Karen Brady of West Ham and The Apprentice. No, sorry, Karen Bradley, of whom no one had ever heard anything, is now in charge at the front line of one of the gravest of British crises, the collapse of self-government in the north of Ireland, the peril to the island of Ireland posed by Brexit and the whole question of a border and all the rest of it. And when you look overseas, when you look at the equally catastrophic presidency of Donald J. Trump, I suppose your heart must beat faster at the thought of anyone at all succeeding him. And then you learn it's now already the bookies' most likely outcome. Imagine that Donald Trump, the Apprentice presenter, is going to be succeeded by Oprah Winfrey. I'm not making that up. Why did you think she made an 8-minute ex cathedra statement to the Golden Globes? No, we'll come to Toby Young in a minute. Why do you think she made that speech? Why do you think the lovies rose as one to hail it as the greatest oratory since Cicero? Well, it could be because for the last 12 months at least, Oprah Winfrey has been laying the foundations of her own run for the presidency for 2020. Now, Jerry Springer I could buy. I met Jerry Springer. He invited me to breakfast in the Dorchester. He was against the Iraq War. He was a former mayor of Cincinnati. He actually understands politics, has been in politics, has been repeatedly elected in politics. And if he brought his show inside the White House, imagine the ratings. But Oprah Winfrey, the sofa queen, Oprah Winfrey, succeeding the Burger King, Donald Trump, has the United States of America gone mad? You bet it's gone mad. But don't think it won't happen. Don't think it can't happen, because that's what they said about Donald J. Trump. Now, I'm getting tired of hearing newsreaders, including our own wonderful newsreader a minute ago, describe Toby Young's vile excrescence as having happened years ago, having been in years gone by. Toby Young is a suppurating, sore, seeping, weeping, vile bile on every platform until yesterday. The tweets that have been well adumbrated across the country over these last few days were made as late as 2015, 3 years ago. I wish I could avoid being questioned about things I said 30 years ago, nearly. 3 years ago, Toby Young was vituperating against poor people, disabled people, teachers, and above all, women. Women whose only attribute, as far as he was concerned, was the size of their golden globes. Now, he's gone. He's yesterday. That's true. But what does it say about the British government that only yesterday a minister spent an entire hour in the House of Commons, 60 minutes of parliamentary time, defending the appointment of this vat of bile that is Toby Young, only for him to resign today. It tells you that this is a clapped-out, collapsing government. I'm blessed, or is it cursed, with a great memory. And though I was young, I remember the final days of the Conservative government in the early 1960s. I remember the Profumo affair. I remember Harold Macmillan having to take to his bed. So long, it transpires, that Jack Kennedy was waiting in a waiting room in Downing Street for 45 minutes whilst the Prime Minister of Britain got dressed. He was handed a copy of the Times to read, and it took fully 45 minutes to read in those days. I remember Macmillan limping off the stage. I remember an absurdity called Sir Alec Douglas Hume, spelt home, the 14th Earl of Hume, becoming the Prime Minister of a Britain whose ruling class was rotten to the core and disintegrating in front of our eyes. Well, dear listeners, that's exactly what's happening today.